Welcome back to today's Arrowhead Pride Chiefs training camp report. It is Tuesday, August 2nd. Day 6 of Chiefs training camp has officially wrapped. So let me welcome in the leader of ArrowheadPride.com, the man who's never afraid to take it down one more button on the chest hair, Pete Sweeney. Pete?
It's that time of it's that time of year, Steven. And also, let's be careful about calling it August 6th. You're not trying to age me another 4 days. I'm already old enough. But yes, day 6 training camp has concluded, and we just went through the pressers, and so now it'll be on eyes on day, I guess, 7 of this when we get through this update. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want me to be totally transparent about that, I just had a typo in my notes, and I read it too fast and I stumbled over it. So just peek behind the curtain a little bit. Me fumbling the intro to today's Arrowhead Pride training camp report. But let's get into it, Pete. Patrick Mahomes apparently looked fine today after getting stepped on yesterday. Did you see? Did it seem like he was moving slow at all, or the legs totally fine?
No, I think it was much ado about nothing in that sense. Patrick Mahomes had a taped left ankle, which I tended to expect after what we saw yesterday, and he seemed to be moving perfectly fine. So this mini scare, it always is a mini scare when anything is wrong with your quarterback, and it is all good. And now we move forward with Patrick Mahomes. I anticipate even the taped ankle not being something that continues to happen probably as soon as next week. So I think he's all right. We can breathe a sigh of relief and focus on other players and make sure that Patrick Mahomes stays healthy.
Yeah, if there was really any reason to worry, I think that he would not be on the practice field because this season kind of hinders on Patrick Mahomes. So good to hear Patrick Mahomes doing fine, and that leg is not anything serious that we need to worry about. Obviously, the biggest thing of the day from Chiefs training camp, Orlando Brown Jr. is in the building. He was on the practice field on Tuesday, but it seemed like they're kind of limiting his snaps. Is that correct, Pete?
Yeah, Orlando Brown Jr. was back, and it was good to see that he was in pads, and he essentially was doing everything except for 11-on-11 scrimmages. That included one-on-one, and I got to watch Orlando Brown go up against Mike Dana twice. I thought Mike got him on the first one, and Orlando Brown held up on the second one. So remember, if you go back to last training camp, he did struggle in that particular drill. So we'll continue to watch how he does now that he's back in the mix. But yeah, the Chiefs are having him do partial practices. It seems like for a few days. The way they usually go about this is we'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of padded practice, and then Thursday will be a lighter day before a day off. So I would think that these days will be the acclimation period for Orlando Brown before he is a full go, maybe on Saturday after that day off.
Yeah, I think it's smart to get him back into the mix slow. He even mentioned it in his post practice press conference. Like, I've been away from football for a while. Like it's been a minute since I've been on the field with my teammates. So I think it's smart to work him back in slowly. But the important thing is that we've got the foundation of that starting offensive line in camp now, so we can see how they look moving forward.
And Roderick Johnson's been doing it. And as Andy Reid has described it, he's been serviceable. So while that acclimation period is going on, I just want to make sure we're detailing the fact that Johnson is entering the mix. So, as you start to make your 53-man roster, I think he's really become the clear backup left tackle. We didn't really want to see, we talked about it on these reports, we didn't necessarily want to see him as the starting left tackle, but I think with all its experience, what you have is a pretty good backup if something were to happen to Brown. And so Roderick Johnson continues to enter during those 11-on-11 periods as Brown adjusts to what is training camp.
I want to ask you about Chiefs rookie wide receiver Skyy Moore, who did leave practice early. It looked like it was a rep with fellow rookie Nazeed Johnson, where Skyy Moore wound up getting up limping. But he did actually add, and Aaron Ladd pointed this out for us on Twitter, that he says he's okay. He says he's totally fine. He did walk up to the training facility himself. So hopefully we don't need to hold our breath about Skyy Moore very much.
Nazeed, you're a 7th rounder. This is the 2nd round wide receiver. It's precious cargo. What are we doing? Yeah, but the video's been out there. We have it on arrowheadpride.com. Aaron Ladd, who does a great job for KSHB 41, does a few things for us at Arrowhead Pride. Had a great video of what happened on the play. And what scared me initially was the fact that this was a hip injury. That's not usually the type of injury that you like to hear because there can be further complications. But the good news was that Skyy Moore himself went on social media. I'm not exactly sure of which Chiefs social media it was, but he essentially said that he's okay. So we'll see when we see him again. I wonder if that'll be tomorrow, or I wonder if the Chiefs are just taking their precautions and maybe give him an extra day. But it does sound like Skyy Moore is okay, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief on that one, as well as Moore is making the case to contribute on offense in year one, even as early as the past few days, which we've talked about right here on the training camp reports.
Yeah, all the hype that he's gotten early on. He's one of the players that I'm most excited to see in a game. So please keep him healthy. Glad to hear that he says he's going to be okay, and that it seems like the Chiefs didn't take it like it was too serious. I want to ask you about Chris Jones, because I feel like, you know, it's common in training camp. We're focused on the young guys and the guys that we have question marks about. But Chris Jones is the superstar on that defensive line. I feel like we haven't talked about him that much, but it sounds like he's been a force the last 2 days since the pads went on.
Yeah, once the pads come on, that's when I think you can really focus on the offensive and defensive lines. And just like on the other side, like I would tell you in these one-on-ones, and I'll put it in my notes again today, Creed Humphrey's otherworldly. It is amazing that this guy's in his second year. He's like the immovable object they were talking back in the WWF days. And on the other side, it's Jones. Whenever Jones is matched up with anyone, it does seem like he is getting the better of it. And you're talking about an all-pro defensive tackle. And like sometimes what we see with Patrick Mahomes, and he makes these dazzling plays, we're sort of used to it, right? We've grown accustomed. Hey, Patrick Mahomes is running to his right. There was a perfect spiral on the run with a sidearm. I think we've just grown accustomed to Chris Jones being able to dominate like he does. And so to me, that's maybe why he hasn't gotten a lot of buzz. But today in the one-on-one, impressive again for the second day in a row. And I think Chris Jones will pick up right where he left off last year.
Yeah, we love to see it. We know he's that interior force for them, and hopefully he'll look even more dominant once they add Carlos Dunlap later in the week. I want to ask you about rookie linebacker Leo Chenal. As is typical Spags fashion when it comes to rookie defensive players, it seems like Leo Chenal is not necessarily getting the look to be a starting day one linebacker or anything like that for the team, but he has shown some flashes in camp.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Chenal, and I think the big thing is you're going to start to be more and more impressed with him as they implement more of these stud periods, more of these tackle periods. We did see a full tackle period today where Ronald Jones was held up by one of those frontline defenders, and in comes Leo Chenal like a bullet and rocks him. I put on Twitter, and I know people were demanding video. We didn't put out video since it's 11 on 11. We're not technically supposed to do that, but let me tell you, Chenal looks like a force. And with what you're saying, I think he's going to have a package designed for him, sort of like maybe Willie Gay did when it came to blitzing in his early season here in Kansas City, where when Chenal enters the game, at least this year, because Elijah Lee's probably going to be that starting Sam, when Chenal enters the game, he'll be a player to watch. And I think there'll be a reason that he is in for that particular play. And I predicted it early on just because of the way he speaks. He likes the violence. He likes the physicality. He likes the contact. I think he's going to grow to be a fan favorite in Kansas City.
Yeah, he's another player in this rookie class that I'm really excited to see. It feels like it's just Steve Spagnuolo's MO. We saw it with Willie Gay. We saw it with Nick Bolton. Even halfway through his rookie season, it took him a while to just get on the field and be in that kind of starting rotation at the linebacker spot. So we'll see how it works out with Leo, but I've got high expectations for him. Final thing for me, Pete. We heard from Chief Special Teams Coordinator Dave Toub, and he's probably the best coach that we can hear from because Dave is just the most honest usually. And it sounds like he said we expect Isaiah Pacheco to return kicks for us this season.
Yeah, Dave Toub, Steve, is someone that I say has a happy hour press conference, right? And if you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. You go with your coworkers to happy hour, and then it all comes out. And Dave Toub is really honest with who exactly he is liking. I mean, he was trying to jog his memory for even more players that he liked, but you heard really good things about guys like Trent McDuffie, Isaiah Pacheco, Skyy Moore when it comes to returner. And I think it caught me by surprise with just how honest he was about these starting kick returners. Remember, Byron Pringle went to the Chicago Bears, so we're wondering, okay, who's going to be the kick returner for this Chiefs team? And he's saying Isaiah Pacheco is going to get an opportunity here, and it's going to be his job to lose. And he'll get that first look in the preseason game. He's looked pretty good at it at practice, and I think it's becoming more and more a case where you can write Pacheco's name in ink on the 53. I know some people had questioned because he was a seventh rounder, but if he has a role as the team's kick returner on special teams as a rookie, he's going to be on this team. I think he'll be involved similar to Chenal limitedly when it comes to the offense, but I like that he's going to get a chance there. When it comes to punt returner, Dave Tope said that McCole Hardman will again be back there. Remember, no longer having the emergency home run hitter and Tyreek Hill. So I do think there'll be room for other people to get an opportunity there. I know Skyy Moore could be in that mix. McDuffie could be in that mix for a punt returner. And then you watch that because, remember, as Tyreek Hill became more involved with the offense here in Kansas City, he did less and less punt returning. And I tend to think that could happen if McCole Hardman becomes an integral piece of this offense now that Tyreek Hill is not here. So something to watch. But, yes, you're starting kick returner right now, Isaiah Pacheco. You're starting punt returner, McCole Hardman.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I don't think we ever doubted that Isaiah Pacheco was going to make this roster just because of his high level of athleticism and explosiveness. It's just a matter of what we'll see from him contributing on offense. Like, it is exciting that Dave Tobe is already willing to admit, no, he's going to be our starting kick returner, because you want to see him get on the field and get some opportunity.
And I think it is an underrated storyline, and maybe something we're not talking about enough is just this complete overhaul of the special teams unit. When you're talking about names that are sometimes on the butt end of jokes like Dorian O'Daniel and Armani Watts and Ben Neiman, you kind of forget just how important they were to the special teams units, because even though they weren't necessarily these guys who stood out on defense, they were eating up a lot of those snaps. None of those players are on the team anymore. So it is a complete reset of the special teams unit. And I was eager to hear who Dave Tope was liking. And you saw him have rave reviews for guys like Darius Fountain and Justin Watson and Brian Cook. Cook we knew was going to be on this roster, but we're wondering who those receivers are going to be. When Fountain and Watson are mentioned by Dave Tobe as guys that he really likes in special teams, that's how you make, those 48, 49, 50 through 53 players of this roster. And so as we don't really see a lot from Josh Gordon, I caught myself looking at Gordon today, and he was working with the threes. So as he's maybe getting phased out of maybe this 53-man roster, maybe it will actually be Watson and Fountain. So we're continuing to monitor that as we get closer and closer to these cuts that'll happen and eventually leading to the 53-man roster.
Yeah, we joke around about it every year, but Dave Tobe always gets a handful of guys that those are Dave Tobe guys. Those are special teams guys, and he's going to be the deciding factor whether or not those guys make the final roster. And so when you hear him talk about that, there's something to what he's saying about those guys and the way they can contribute on special teams.
Well, when Gordon's been so quiet on offense, right? I think you start to look at, okay, well, what else can you do for me? And to me, that's where Watson and a Fountain, who has made the team over Gordon before in the playoffs for special teams. So I don't know. I'm eager to see what happens with Fountain. I have noticed in recent days he's been getting a little bit more time with the first team. I think that's not really necessarily a coincidence because he can help on special teams. I think they want to see what he can do on offense because eventually these guys may need to help in an injury type of situation. And so as we again begin to fill out this roster, I think those are players to watch. Another one that sticks out to me, and I just want to mention, is Corey Coleman has been working a lot more with the top teams than I ever expected him to, and he's another returner candidate. So this room is getting a lot more interesting when it comes to the wide receivers, and we'll see how it shakes out as we go along with this month of August right here.
He's Pete Sweeney. You can follow him on Twitter at PG Sween. If you want to listen to the Chiefs press conferences in their entirety, you can do so on From the Podium at the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. That's available for you right now on Apple and Spotify. Please make sure you follow along to all of our training camp coverages. Pete's daily camp notebooks are must read if you want to follow along with everything there. And as always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. We will talk to you guys tomorrow for day 7 of Chiefs training camp.